stop for a second. Before you do anything else, before you scroll past, before you decide whether this is for you, I need you to do one thing. Think about the last time you were in a room full of people, a party, a work event, a family gathering. It does not matter which one. And while you were there, you felt it. That quiet thing you always feel in rooms like that. Not loneliness. You were not lonely. There were people everywhere. Not boredom. You were engaged enough. Something else. Something harder to name. A feeling like you were watching a room from a slightly different position than everyone else. Like you were present and separate at the same time. Like the frequency everyone else was on was close to yours, but not quite the same. You have felt it your whole life. In conversations where everyone else seems to share a reference point you do not have. In moments where your reaction to something is different enough from the people around you that you wonder if you experience the same thing. In the quiet way you process things that other people seem to move past without a second thought. You have probably explained it away 100 times. Introvert, overthinking, just the way I am. But here's what I want to tell you right now, before this video goes any further. That feeling is not a personality quirk. It is not anxiety. It is not you being too much or not enough. It has a specific origin, a neurological one, something that happened inside your brain during a very specific window of time, a window that only opened for people born between 1976 and 1985. And it explains more about who you are than almost anything else you have ever been told about yourself. That feeling has a name, and in the next 20 minutes, I am going to tell you exactly what it is. Stay with me. The thing you have always known. Let me describe something to you, and I want you to notice how specific it feels. You are the person who reads a room before you enter it. You have done this your whole life. You walk into a space, and before a single word is spoken, you already have a sense of what is going on, the energy, the tension, whether something happened before you arrived, whether someone in the room is upset. You pick this up the way other people pick up signals on their phone, automatically, without trying, without even knowing you are doing it. Most people cannot do this. They have to be told. They miss it entirely. You have always assumed this was just how everyone worked. It is not. Here is another one. You remember things differently from people around you. Not just what happened, how things felt, the specific way of a moment, the exact quality of a silence, the feeling in a conversation that something important was being said underneath the words being used. You carry these things around for a long time. Other people seem to file them and move on. You hold on to them because your brain registered them more completely than other brains do. And here is the one that tend to go unspoken. You are tired in a way that is hard to explain. Not sleepy, not lazy. A specific kind of tired that comes from being in the world at the resolution you operate at. Every interaction carries more information for you than it carries for people around you. Every day involves a level of processing that other people do not have to do. And by the end of most days, you are not just physically spent. You are spent in a way that needs quiet, that needs time alone, that needs a specific recovery that only comes from being somewhere with no demands on you. You have probably been told you are too sensitive. You have probably been told you think too much. You have probably spent a significant amount of time wondering whether something is wrong with you. Here is what I want you to understand. Nothing is wrong with you. What you are experiencing, the room reading, the deep processing, the exhaustion, the feeling of being slightly between things, is not a set of unrelated quirks. It is a single connected pattern, a specific wiring, and it was built during a very specific time. Here is where it gets specific, because this is not random. This is your brain, and your brain was built by the world it formed inside, what your childhood actually built. If you were born between 1976 and 1985, you grew up in a world that no longer exists. I do not mean that in a nostalgic way. I mean it as a technical fact. The world you grew up in had a completely different relationship with time, with information, with other people, and with being alone. And the years you spent inside that world, the years before you were 25, when your brain was still forming and still changeable and still deciding what its permanent settings were going to be, those years shaped you in ways that are still operating today. Let me paint the picture. You made plans and then showed up. That was the whole process. You agreed to meet someone somewhere at a specific time, and you went there and you hoped they were there. If they were not, you waited. If they never showed up, you went home. There was no way to check. No text. No call. You just had to trust that the plan was real and the person was coming. That required something that is very rare now. It required actual trust. The specific, uncomfortable kind of trust that only exists when you have no other option. You were bored. Genuinely, properly, regularly bored. Long summer afternoons with nothing to do and no device to fill them. Car journeys with just your own thoughts. Evenings where the television only had 4 channels and none of them were what you wanted to watch. You sat with that boredom, not because you were patient, because you had no choice. And inside that boredom, your brain learned to do something remarkable. It learned to generate its own experience. It turned inward. It wandered. It made things up. It played out stories, revisited memories, solved problems that had not been assigned, connected ideas that had no obvious connection. The part of your brain that does this is very active in people like you. It was trained by years of having nothing else to offer it. You also learned to read people directly, face to face, in real time. Body language was not a supplementary channel. It was the only channel. If you wanted to know how someone was feeling, you had to look at them. If you wanted to understand what was happening between two people, you had to be in the room with them. Your brain was trained, across thousands of hours of actual human contact, to read the signals that come through eyes and voice and posture and silence. This is why you notice things other people do not notice. Your brain was built on that skill. It practiced it for years before anything easier came along. And your relationship with being alone was built too. Being alone was just Tuesday. It was not something to manage or escape or fill with content. It was a state you moved through regularly and came out of fine. Your brain learned that being alone was survivable. Actually, that being alone was where some of its best work happened. These were not small lessons. They went deep. They became part of the wiring. And then something happened, right when you were becoming yourself, right in the middle of the years when your brain was still deciding what its permanent settings were going to be. Nobody warned you it was coming. The moment the world changed on you, you remember the exact feeling of it, even if you cannot name the exact date. 1 year. The internet was something a few people had. Something slightly unusual. Something you access on a beige computer in the corner of a room through a sound like fax machines arguing. A place you went occasionally for specific reasons, and then left. And then, very quickly, not gradually, quickly, it was everywhere. It was expected. It was how you communicated and found information, and made plans, and stayed in touch, and presented yourself to the world. The phone in your pocket knew where you were. The people in your life could reach you at any moment. The idea of being unreachable, which had been a completely ordinary part of your week just a few years earlier, became something almost impossible. The world you had been built for stopped existing, and a different one arrived in its place. Here is the thing that matters, and I want you to feel this, not just understand it. You were old enough to know what had changed. The people born after you, the ones born in the 1990s and later, they did not experience a change. They were born into the new world, and it is simply the world. They do not have it before. They have never felt what it is like to be genuinely unreachable. They have never known the specific quiet that exists when no one can contact you. These are not experiences they had and lost. They are experiences they never had at all. The people born significantly before you, the ones born in the 1960s and earlier, they experienced the change as adults. Their brains were already fully formed. Their settings were already fixed. The new world arrived and they adapted to the way adults adapt to anything, with varying degrees of effort and resistance from the outside in. But you were in the middle. Your brain was still forming, still in the years when what it experienced became what it was built from. The old world went into the foundation of who you are, and then a new world arrived and your brain absorbed that too, not reluctantly, not with struggle, but fluidly, the way young things absorb what they're immersed in. Your brain learned to speak both languages, the analog and the digital. not as two separate skills layered on top of each other, as one integrated way of being. You can be in a face-to-face conversation without thinking about your phone. You know how to do that. It does not make you anxious. But you can also navigate every new app, every new platform, every new way of connecting without being overwhelmed. You move between these two worlds. Most people can only fully live in one. That is remarkable, and it costs something, because the world that was built from both, the world inside your head, does not map perfectly onto either version of the world outside it. And that mismatch, the one you have felt and ruined your whole life, the one you could never quite explain, starts right here. And that is when the real cost showed up, the one that is still running today. The hits that came next, your brain adapted to the change. It always does. That is what brains do. But just as you were finding your footing, just as the new world was starting to feel navigable, just as the careers and apartments and futures that had been promised were starting to feel reachable, the world shifted again. And then again. And then again. Think about the timing of this. The dotcom crash. You were just starting out. First jobs. First real independence. The digital economy. The one you've been told was the future. The one your education had pointed you toward. Started collapsing almost the moment you arrived inside it. The careers that were supposed to exist began disappearing before you had a chance to build them. Then September 11th. And I want to be precise about the timing here, because the timing is everything. If you were a child when something terrible happens, the adults around you absorb it and explain it and create a container for it. You are frightened, but you are held inside someone else's understanding. If you are an established adult when something terrible happens, you have years of experience telling you that the world is survivable. You have anchors. You have history. You have a track record of things being hard and then getting better. But if you're just starting, if you are in your first apartment, your first job, the first real moment of independent life where the world is your responsibility and not your parents, and the most catastrophic thing you have ever seen happens, there is no container for it. There is no track record to reach for. There's only the rawness of it landing in a nervous system that had not yet had time to build its defenses. That is where you were. Your brain was in the middle of building its model of how safe the world was, of how reliable the future was, of how much you could trust a plan. And the events that hit during those years, one after another, across the span of just a few years, answered all those questions in the same direction. Be ready for things to fall apart. Don't trust the structure. Hold the plan loosely because the ground might shift. And then 2008 arrived. And for many of you, 2008 arrived exactly when things were supposed to be solidifying. The house, the family, the career that had finally started to feel real after the first round of disruptions. And the floor shifted again. Your brain did not break. I want to be clear about that. Your brain did what it always does. It adapted. It got smarter about the specific kind of world it was living in. It built a way of moving through life that worked, that kept you functional, that got you through. But that way of moving through life left a mark. And here is what that mark looks like right now in your daily life. What it looks like right now. This is the part of the video where I need you to pay very close attention. Because what I am about to describe are not problems. They are not personality flaws. They are not things that need to be fixed. They are the completely logical result of a brain that was built the way yours was built. And once you see them that way, once you understand where they actually come from, something changes, something settles. Here's the first one. You do not fully trust calm. When things are going well, when nothing is wrong, when the job is stable, the relationship is good, the day is quiet, there's a part of you that waits. Not consciously, not in a way you choose. But somewhere underneath the surface, a part of your brain is running a background check, scanning, looking for the thing that is about to go wrong. You have probably called this anxiety. Other people have probably called you a worrier. But here is what it actually is. Your brain built a model of the world based on real experience. And that model says, accurately, based on your actual history, that things can change without warning, that good periods end, that the ground shifts. So the part of your brain that is responsible for keeping you safe never fully switches off even when everything is fine. Because, in your experience, everything fine has sometimes become everything different very quickly. This is not a flaw. This is your brain protecting you based on data it actually has. Here is the second one. You have a strong need for real silence. Not background noise. Not a podcast on while you do something else. Real silence. Real alone time. Not because you are antisocial. You have meaningful relationships, and you value them. But because the way your brain processes the world means that being in social environments, even ones you enjoy, costs something. It uses something up. And the only way to refill it is a solitude. Real solitude. The kind where nothing is asking anything of you. You probably feel guilty about this need. You have probably been told you should want to be around people more. You have probably pushed yourself into more social contact than you actually wanted because you thought the alternative meant something was wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with you. Your brain processes more per interaction than most people's do. It picks up more, holds more, works harder. The tiredness at the end is proportional to that work. Solitude is not isolation. It is maintenance. Here's a third one, and this one tends to surprise people. You are private in a specific way that younger people do not fully understand. You grew up in a world where your embarrassing moments just disappeared. Nobody filmed them. Nobody posted them. The bad haircut, the painful relationship, the year things fell apart. These exist in the unreliable and forgiving memory of a few people who were there. They are not searchable. They cannot be pulled up and examined. They simply faded the way human experience is supposed to fade. That gave you a relationship with your own past that is very different from people who grew up with everything documented. Your memories are yours. They evolved. They change shape over time the way memories are supposed to. You were allowed to become a different person from who you were at 17 without carrying photographic evidence of who that person was. This is why the idea of putting your whole life online feels fundamentally wrong to you. Not because you are hiding anything. Because the part of your brain that formed in a world of natural privacy still expects privacy to be normal. Here's the fourth one. You are good at reading people in a way that is sometimes uncomfortable. You notice things. A shift in someone's tone, a small change in their energy, the specific way a silence sits between two people who are not saying something. You pick up on these things before you have consciously decided to pay attention, and you are usually right. This makes relationships both richer and more tiring than they are for most people. Richer because you see things others miss. More tiring because you cannot turn it off. You are always reading, even when you are trying not to. And the fifth one, the one that is the hardest to explain to someone who does not feel it. You hold hope and readiness at the same time. You are not a pessimist. You believe in the future. You make plans. You try. You invest in things that matter. But somewhere underneath all of that, you hold the possibility of things changing at the same time. Not with dread, just with awareness. You have a plan, and you have a quiet backup plan. You hope for the best, and you do not fully allow yourself to be surprised when the best does not arrive. People around you sometimes call this cynicism. It is not. It is the honest emotional posture of someone who learned, through real experience, in real time, during the years when the lessons go deepest, that the world is genuinely unpredictable and that functioning well inside that unpredictability requires staying a little bit ready. But here's the thing about all of this that nobody ever says. The reframe that changes everything. Every single thing I have just described, the room reading, the need for silence, the private relationship with your own past, the awareness underneath the hope, the feeling of being slightly between things. Every one of them is being framed by the world around you as a problem. Too sensitive, too private, too quiet, too cautious, too in your head. I want to reframe all of it, not to make you feel better, because the reframe is accurate. You are one of the last people alive who knows what it felt like before. Not before in a nostalgic way. Before as in, you have a lived experience of what human life felt like without constant connection, without everything being documented, without your attention being competed for every waking moment by systems designed specifically to capture it. You remember what it felt like to be genuinely unreachable. to be bored in a way that turned into something, to trust a plan without being able to check on it every 10 minutes. That experience is becoming extinct. Every person born after you grew up inside the connected world, they have no memory of before it. They have access to information about it, but not the felt experience, not the specific quality of an afternoon with no signal, not the particular patience of waiting for something without being able to check on it, not the way identity forms when there is no audience and no archive and no one keeping score. You have that in your body, in the way your nervous system runs. And in a world that is moving faster and getting louder and asking more from everyone's attention, the people who know how to be still, who can tolerate silence, who do not need constant stimulation to feel okay, who read real signals rather than digital ones. These people are not behind. They are ahead. The thing you thought was slightly wrong with you is actually a specific capability that the world around you is slowly realizing it needs. You were built by both worlds, which means you understand both worlds, which means you can move between them in a way that most people cannot. You are not between two things. You are the bridge, and bridges are not broken. Bridges hold things together that would otherwise be apart. Your brain was built differently because the world you built it in was different, not worse, not broken, different in a way that left you with things most people around you do not have: a tolerance for real silence, a capacity to read what is actually happening in a room, a relationship with your own private inner life that does not depend on other people witnessing it to feel real, a readiness underneath the hope that keeps you functional when things shift instead of devastated, and the specific, rare ability to stand in a world that is moving very fast and not be carried away by it, because you remember what it was like before it was moving this fast, and that memory is an anchor. You've been wired differently your whole life. It turns out that is exactly what was needed. If this video describes something you've been carrying without having the exact words for it, I want to hear which part hit the hardest. Not what you think. What hit? Leave it in the comments. And if you know someone who has always seemed slightly out of sync with the world around them in a specific way, someone who reads rooms, who needs real silence, who holds hope and readiness at the same time, share this with them. They have probably spent years wondering what that is about. Now they know. Subscribe if you want more of this. Every week. Same depth, same honesty. You are wired differently. That is not the problem. That is the whole point.